Dead Space is one of the most iconic horror games I know of. From the set dressing to the atmosphere and even the gameplay, this game never ceases to make you feel like you're on edge and trapped in the eldritch abomination of a nightmare that the game takes place in. I love almost every single part of this game. There are a few moments, but I'll get into those later. So welcome to the Den, friends. I'm Strider Fox, and welcome to my first retrospective ever. Hope it does well. And also, my retrospective and my thoughts on Dead Space.
Hell? Sir, the auto dock. What is it? We're off track. We're gonna hit the hull. Hit the blast shields. That guidance tether's damaged. Switch to manual, now.
Inside the magnetic field? Are you insane?
So, as any good retrospective on a video game, I feel like I should start from the beginning. But not with the development of the game, or any tie-in novels or whatever that, establish more of the world, because I know games. I don't really know, development, and, frankly, I want to focus on the game itself. There might have been issues with the development, there might not have been. It might have had a rocky road, it might have been smooth sailing. But that's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is the game itself and how it feels. So we're going to start with the main menu. I know, right? Crazy. Main menu over the actual intro of the game. And I want to start there because it is peak. I love it. The weird sort of coppery, techno, sci-fi futuristic aesthetic of it, and how surprisingly minimal it is, despite the game that it's about, that it's leading you into. It's very stylized, and as many games in this era had, it has a demo. And my god, do I love it when a game has a demo. That might just be nostalgia because I started playing games when they had demos, and they don't really do that anymore, but I don't know. What I do know is the demo more than sets the mood for what you're about to get into. So, it opens with just a... You know what, actually? I think I'm just gonna let you watch the demo and see for yourself. Every single part of that. Absolute delight. I love it. And just the detail of that woman singing over the wide shots and then the horrors that our main character gets into. It's great. And you'll come to learn who she is very, very soon. But that leaves it for the demo. Now, with the main menu and the demo talked about, let's actually get into the meat and potatoes, the game itself. I will be recounting this as I played it, so you will get comments on the story and the gameplay and all that fun stuff as I encountered it in my playthrough. And I played on normal for a normal experience of absolute Eldritch hell. But now, with all that said, the game. The game opens with Isaac watching a video from his fiancée, I believe, a woman named Nicole, she worked on the Shimura, which is going to be our main setting of the game. And he's watching this while en route to the Ishimura. The USS Ishimura is a planet cracker. Basically, massive mining ships that tear planets apart to harvest their resources. After the video that he watches of his wife talking to him, all hell breaks loose immediately. Before we even get onto the Ishimura, something goes wrong. Their communications are down, they're not responding to our crew. By the way, I should talk about our crew. Our crew is Isaac Clarke. Hammond is another character. Isaac Clarke is our main character. He is an engineer, and he is sent on this mission with a woman named Rebecca and Captain Hammond to figure out why the Ishimura sent out a distress signal and, fix the ship. But when they pull into the ship, the gravity tethers, or what have you, decide to go a little wonky and drags their little vessel, the Kellion, right into the Ishimura. Rebecca wants them to back out. Hammond says, no, we're here to do a job. So they masterfully pilot the ship right into the hangar bay of the Ishimura. But regardless, their ship is damaged. They're not getting off until their job is done. Right off the bat, the movement and the controls feel great. I love how clunky it is. It adds to the atmosphere of the game itself. But now, with them crashed, they need to get off the Kellion and actually get into the Ishimura and establish contact with the crew, figure out what's going on. But the power's out. Don't know why. Well, we will soon. So they go in, they get the power back on, and are immediately attacked by monsters. These monsters are the crew of the USS Ishimura, and they've been twisted into these horrific forms that are designed for the utmost killing potential. And now these creatures, named necromorphs, attack. Hammond and Rebecca get separated from Isaac when Isaac went to turn the power on, and now all Isaac can do is run. So he runs down a hall into an elevator, narrowly escaping the necromorph on his ass. And it takes him down to where he will get his first weapon, the plasma cutter. Now, I didn't use every weapon in this game, so I will only be able to talk about the weapons I did use. And those weapons being the plasma cutter, the line cutter, and the Ripper. My god, do I love the Ripper, but we will get into those other two when we get there. As for the plasma cutter, the way it works is simple. Shoot beams of plasma, cut things. And we need to cut things, because necromorphs cannot be killed easily unless you dismember them. Every weapon has a fire and an alt fire. Except for the plasma cutter. My words are not great. The plasma cutter, its alt fire, quote unquote, changes the direction of your beams from a horizontal to a vertical and back again, which are great for precise strikes to cut off the limbs of necromorphs. With the first weapon acquired, Isaac continues forward and meets up with Hammond and Rebecca again. They tell him that he needs to fix the tram, because the trams are out. Without the trams, they can't really get around the Ishimura. So, we go and we do that. And on the way, Hammond tells us to cut off the limbs, because that's the only effective way to kill necromorphs. As we know, considering there was a huge little blurb written in blood where the plasma cutter was that says, cut off their limbs. That's fine. Just gotta make sure we know this. We get into the tramway, and it is absolutely massive. It really is a great way to just give you an idea of the scale of the Ishimura. Just in this one area alone, it's incredible. And all of this was done on the PS3. This game is really, really well made, in my opinion. And the PS3 was pretty good for its time, but it's nothing compared to what we have now. watch me date myself with the mention of a PS5, but yeah, it's incredible. I love this game. So, in the tramway, there is a malfunctioning door that blocks our path. Luckily, next to it is something called a stasis module. The stasis module allows you to slow things you hit with it, but it's got a limited charge, so we'll need to manage that. Using the stasis module, we slow down the door and are able to get past it before it decides to crush us. Sorry, I've been calling her Rebecca this whole time. Her name was Kendra. So, I'm just gonna have to go over every single time I said Rebecca and put Kendra in editing, but that's fine. So Kendra tells us how to use the stasis module, funnily enough, after we've already used it. But, you know, it is what it is, gotta make sure we know how this game works. So we go and we use the stasis module to fix the tram. It had something was broken with it. I don't quite remember what. But using... Oh yeah, no, I do remember. The tram itself was busted. We had to replace it. And we used the stasis module to lock in some docking beam things, so we can replace the tram on the tramway. With the trams fixed, we get jump scared by a whole bunch of necromorphs. And this is our first actual combat arena, where we need to kill all the necromorphs before we can continue. On the way back from fixing the tram, we picked up the data board for the tram computer so we can use the trams, and then found a data log telling me, once again, to cut off the limbs. Which is great, except this data log got interrupted by Kendra. She tells me a storage room is locked and I'll need a key from maintenance bay. So Isaac heads to the maintenance bay to get the key. On the way, he found a text log detailing the ship's damage next to the key. And yeah, the Ishimura is not doing well. But we grab the key, we head back, put the data board in the computer thing, and now, next to this, we find a workbench. We use this workbench to upgrade our equipment. We can improve our weapons, improve our stasis, improve another module we'll get later, and improve our suit. And these things are improved with things called power nodes. There are limited power nodes throughout the game, and you can't really use them to upgrade everything. You can't get every single upgrade you want on a first run through, no matter how hard or good you play. Which is by design. You need to decide what you want and what you are willing to sacrifice in order to continue. And I love when games do that. We don't have infinite options. We have a few that we need to pick from. Now, with the tram computer put back together with the data board, we can finally actually use the trams. So, Isaac turns the trams back on and goes back to the Killian to await the others. On the way to the Killian, Kendra and Hammond head to the bridge. But it becomes very clear Kendra does not trust Hammond. But Hammond doesn't really seem to care. Hammond's here to do his job, and regardless of whether or not his crew trusts him, he's the one in charge. So Isaac gets back to the Killian, only for it to be even more damaged than when we arrived, thanks to a bunch of necromorph shenanigans. And unfortunately, when Isaac tries to start up the Killian explodes. He barely gets out of it before it just completely detonates. And there goes our way off Ishimura. Hammond sends Isaac to find the captain's rig in light of this, because we need to figure out what's going on, and they can't get access to the bridge's systems without the captain's card. So now, Isaac needs to find the captain of the Ishimura and take his rig, which is basically his weird suit interface system thing. I'm not quite sure how to describe the rig other than your standard inventory system in a video game mixed with futuristic, everything connects to this one thing kind of thing. And the rig, anyway, is in medical. So now we need to take the trams and leave this area to head to medical. When Isaac arrives at the tram to leave for medical, he learns about the store. In the store, you can spend credits you pick up from dead necromorphs or lying around the world ship. You can use these to buy and sell equipment, med packs, and etc. And these things can get really important. I never actually ended up buying any med packs or stasis packs, which are what you use to refuel stasis. In fact, I ended up actually selling several of those along with a bunch of ammo throughout the game to buy power nodes, because you can buy power nodes at the stores. They're actually, at least in my experience, the most reliable way to get those power nodes for upgrades. At these stores, not only can you buy upgrade materials like power nodes, you can buy weapons when you find their schematics, you can buy med packs and blah blah blah. You can also buy suit upgrades once you find schematics for those. And each suit upgrade will increase your defense and give you more inventory storage. After messing with the store, we took the tram to intensive care. When we get off the tram to intensive care, Isaac encounters a survivor. And this is very interesting. We do not find many survivors. And this is a massive ship. You would expect us to probably find more. Meaning, these necromorphs and whatever's making them is horribly efficient. Absolutely terrifyingly efficient at killing. The survivor tells us that this corpse next to her prophesied that Isaac would show up. And she asks Isaac to help us, and it seems like she's talking to this corpse, like this corpse is alive and talking back, which is really, really weird and creepy, but also an excellent piece of foreshadowing, if you know the lore. So, with that, she gives us the Kinesis module before dying. And the Kinesis module is the module I hinted at earlier. It allows you to pick up and throw things. And my god, is this thing the most useful upgrade you will get in this game. I would actually argue to say it is more useful than the thing that lets you slow things to shoot them, and more useful than suit upgrades themselves. You need to pick up things a lot, and you can use dismembered pieces of necromorphs as weapons using your Kinesis module. Now, with the Kinesis module, we find schematics that unlock more things in the store. So, yay, we got more schematics, we get more stuff. On the way, Isaac gets a call from Hammond. Hammond and Kendra got separated, and he tells Isaac that he needs to use thermite and shock pads from within medical to destroy a barricade blocking the way to the captain's rig. So now, Isaac needs to go find those. Isaac finally gets told about the weapons having alt fire on the way to the thermite, which if you made it this far in the game and didn't realize you had alt fire, I am so sorry for you. On the way, Isaac gets locked up in a quarantine and has to fight more necromorphs before he can continue to the thermite. And this one jump scared me and I took way more hits than I should have. On the way to the thermite after the quarantine, we see a guy, a survivor, quickly get killed by what I will lovingly call necro babies. Now, I nicknamed most of the variants of necromorph in this game, and I will be referring to them as my nicknames. So we will have, as of now, we have seen regular necromorphs, crawlymorphs, and necro babies. So that is fun. The necro babies are one of the really, really weirder parts of this game. Not in a bad way, it's just, why are there so many babies on a planet cracker that they are an effective unit against us? Regardless, the necro baby jump scared me, and in order to stop it from ripping my brains out, I kicked it. Isaac kicks the necro baby. Now, some enemies will grapple you and you will have to spam a button to break the grapple. which will then do an animation, and depending on the necromorph, you might even get the chance to kill them. And you kill necro babies when they grapple you by throwing them down and kicking them. So ain't that just dandy? After killing a few more necro babies, Isaac picks up the thermite, and now he needs to find the shock pads. On the way to the shock pads, he finds his second weapon, the line gun. And I use the line gun not as much as I should have, and it's really effective. The line gun produces a wide slicing beam, and the alt fire fires timed mines that will explode anything that touches them after they detonate. If you get trapped and you got a whole bunch of people on you, drop a mine, run away, watch things go boom. I didn't use the mines all that much though. I preferred the wide slicing beam. On the way, Isaac finds a text log of someone on the planet killing someone else, and weirdly enough, the person doesn't seem to show remorse for their actions, despite their evaluation not showing any signs of sociopathy. So, whatever's going on this planet seems to be affecting people in way more ways than just turning them into rotting murder monsters. Isaac had to pass through a damaged area of the ship in order to get to the shock pads, where the seal was completely busted, and it was now leaking air, which means we need to survive off of our limited oxygen supply and quickly get to the next blast door. We also encounter our first 0G section. In these areas, you will be able to jump from wall to wall, and it gets really disorienting really fast. But I actually think that's a plus side for this, because with how disorienting it gets, you have to keep track of where you are and where enemies are in a third dimension. Rather than just ahead of you or behind you, now you need to worry about if they're above you, while you are also flipping around. He gets the shock pad, and now needs to head back to the barricade to combine them with thermite to make the bomb. And on my way back to the barricade, I had my first death to weird little necrobugs, or necromites as I actually call them while I played. And the necrobugs, or necromites, are really, really frustrating to deal with. There are a whole bunch of little ones that will swarm you, and then they will jump on you and rapidly drain your health until you knock them off. The game gives you a weapon called a flamethrower, which, if you don't know what a flamethrower is, then, well, I can't help you. But the flamethrower is really great on the necromites. I, however, never used the flamethrower and actually have a much more fun way of dealing with necromites. The aforementioned bombs. The little mines that the line gun can drop a mine down and run away, the necromites will hone in on you and walk right over the bomb as it explodes. Isaac gets back to the barricade and combines the thermite and the shock pad to destroy it. And with that destroyed and the path opened up, Isaac can finally get the captain's rig. On the way to the morgue, we found a video log from Nicole asking for help. So it seems like she's still alive, which, if she is, then maybe she can help us get out of here. Also on the way to the captain's rig, Isaac finds a lady doing a medical procedure on somebody who is really unwilling, until she sees Isaac and then proceeds to slit her throat with her own saw. So that's nice. On the way to the captain, we found an audio log from a doctor detailing the symptoms of the infected people, and it was our first mention of something called the marker. Hold on to that name, the marker. It will be very, very, very important later. But anyway, when we get to the captain, I call them Batmorphs. They're these flappy necromorph beasts that can infect dead bodies and turn them into enemies you'll have to fight. And it does that to the captain. With the captain reanimated, we do what we do best. Cut off their limbs. Then we cut off his limbs and take his rig. After getting the captain's rig, Hammond called Isaac and told him to take the tram to engineering while he tries to find out what happened here. And unfortunately, the ship is about to drop out of orbit around the planet, which obviously it's not good. Because if the ship falls out of orbit, then the game ends and there's no fun final sequence or whatever. Hammond finds out that the infection came from inside the planet that the Ishimura was cracking when the planet cracking started. He also finds out that the engines are out of fuel and the gravity centrifuge, the thing that makes sure the ship holds itself together, is down. Now Isaac needs to refuel the engines and reactivate the gravity centrifuge. Isaac finds several audio logs from survivors, and it becomes really clear. People started going crazy immediately when the infection got on the planet. Like, there was no incubation time. It was just instant madness. Isaac refuels the engines and starts the sequence before having to fight through a horde of necromorphs on this weird moving cart trolley thing. Not quite sure what you'd call it. He also finds an audio log mentioning unitologists. Those are probably the bad guys. Most likely. He also finds the schematic for my favorite weapon, the Ripper. The Ripper is, and I'll just get into it now, the best weapon in my heavily, heavily unbiased opinion. It is literally a circular saw mixed into a gun. The main fires a spinning saw blade that will hold it in place with weird kinesis power that does a whole lot of damage if you can hold it onto the limbs of necromorphs. The alt fire just launches that thing. Just full on, boom, there goes the saw blade. Alt fire's not as good, but if you're in a pinch, it's pretty effective. After Isaac finishes refueling, he heads through the decontamination chamber to get to the centrifuge. He goes into another zero-G room to activate the centrifuge using stasis and kinesis mods, by slowing things down and then dragging things into place. With the centrifuge reactivated, a vacuum opens up, and now we are on a race against the clock and our ticking energy or oxygen reserves to get out of the centrifuge room without it whacking us and turning us to gibs. With the engines refueled and the centrifuge back online, Isaac had to manually actually restart the engines. But luckily, he does so, and that prevents us from falling out of orbit, only for him to be grabbed by a meat tendril in a hallway when he leaves the centrifuge room to go restart the engines. Which, these tendrils show up several times throughout the game, and I still don't really know where they come from. I think they're supposed to come from the final boss, but I'm a little confused on that, because the final boss doesn't even take place on the Ishimura, but that's spoilers for later. He kills the tendril, restarts the engine, and then gets a call from Kendra saying that she's barricaded herself in a room and is looking into the infection and what's happened here. After restarting the engines and getting that message from Kendra, I finally bought the Ripper. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, I love it to bits. I would love to do a Ripper only run if I knew how. Now that's enough about me gushing over the Ripper. Back to the story. With the engines activated from engineering, and the ship pulling out of its descent from orbit, it moves into a massive debris field, and that means that the ship is going to get pummeled by chunks of planet. In order to prevent that from happening, the asteroid defense system, which has been shut down and damaged, needs to be brought back online. Hammond tells us to meet him on the bridge, and we'll be able to go from there. On the way, though, Isaac gets a brief call from Nicole asking where Isaac is, which really seems to cement the fact that Nicole is alive. At least, she seems to be. Kendra also tries to confront Hammond over video about this marker that she's uncovered logs of, but Hammond does not know what the hell she is talking about. And even when she pushes him, he genuinely is confused on what this marker could be. Regardless, Isaac heads to the captain's nest in order to deal with the ADS system, or Asteroid Defense System. Asteroid Defense System. Whatever, I'm running with it. On the way, Isaac gets jump scared by a really big monster when leaving the tram room, but we're not gonna fight it just yet. It smashes through the wall to look at us, but we will deal with it later. When we get into the bridge, Isaac finds another audio log of the crew that were showing them as they were under attack, or we listened to it. We also find the level 3 suit schematic, which I didn't mention when we got the level 2 schematic, but we got it a while ago. I probably won't mention getting the suit upgrades, because, I mean, I've told you what they do, and all in all, they're not that interesting. We get to Hammond, and he tells us that Isaac needs to find junction boxes to rewire the ADS system to make sure the cannons will actually fire. He also warns Isaac that there is something big out there, and that something big ambushes us when we leave the captain's nest. In order to beat this thing, as our first boss, Isaac needs to slow it, run around to hide it, shoot it in the ass, because its front side is heavily armored. But, funnily enough, that boss fight was no issue for me, because line cutter in the ass is a surprisingly efficient way to kill this thing. Regardless, it's dead. Isaac won't have to deal with that one anymore. And now, he needs to move on. Isaac turns on the atrium elevators in order to find the first few wire boxes, and gets a message from Nicole telling us to make us whole again. And you will be hearing the phrase make us whole again a lot. It seems to be very important, as a lot of these things tend to be. Using the elevators, Isaac continues and gets the few junction boxes rewired, and also finds a video of the captain's death, where he was accidentally killed by a doctor trying to sedate him, as the captain seemed to be not all there and pretty erratic. But that is how he died. And the doctor, I don't think he ended up doing very well after that. After activating the second junction box, Hammond calls and says that his head is pounding. Which, I'll go ahead and say it right now, is evidence of infection. So, that's nice. Kendra calls us and tells us that whatever this stuff is that's infected the Shimura, it reanimates dead tissue and molds it into these monsters, which I already mentioned at the beginning of this video, because, I mean, I had to. After Isaac reroutes the last junction box, Hammond calls and says it's time to manually re-aim the cannons while he replaces the targeting system. So we go to the ship's exterior and to the cannons. On the way through this vacuum area, Isaac needs to dodge asteroids that are smashing into the ship. And my god, I do not like the cannon sections. There are two cannon sections in this game, and I really don't like them. They feel out of place in a game like this, and with the game's feeling intentionally janky controls to be clunky, the asteroid minigame and the minigame later, just, they don't feel right. Luckily, they are a very small part of this game, so it's fine. I won't count it as too much of a hit against the game, because I played for like 11 hours, and using the cannons took up a whole 15 minutes total. So, it's not that big a deal, but I will come out and say that I'm not a fan of it. It's very difficult, and in order to complete it, you have to shoot incoming asteroids or meteors or whatever before they hit the ship and do too much damage. Regardless, Isaac does it, Hammond gets the targeting system back online, and then we can leave and return to the bridge. But Kendra calls and says that something in hydroponics is poisoning the air of the Shimura, and in order to deal with that, we'll need to mix up a poison for whatever is poisoning the air. So, fight poison with poison, I guess. But that means we'll need to go back to medical. So, back to medical we go. When we get off the tram into medical, Kendra says that the contamination is spreading far faster than she expected, and the supplies we will need to stop this spreading toxin are in the medical lab. A strange voice comes over the intercom while in medical saying that Isaac, quote, can't stand in the way of God's plan, and asks if Isaac is, quote, blind like the rest. Now that voice is the voice of someone very important. That person very important we will meet in just a bit. But whoever this person is, they seem to have reprogrammed the door locks in medical purposefully to keep Isaac out. But that's not going to stop Isaac. Isaac needs to get a DNA sample of the alien tissue once he gets the chemicals, and Kendra will try to get Isaac a DNA sample. On the way to the chemicals, Isaac finds an audio log from Dr. Mercer. Dr. Mercer is the guy we heard on the intercom. His religious fanaticism towards this necromorph invasion is peak levels of cultic bullcrap, which is by design, because this guy and the people he works with worship these things. But we'll get into more of that another time. Anyway, Dr. Mercer seems to have been experimenting on the people of the Ishimura with the DNA of these gross alien creatures that they found inside the planet. We find one of these experiments as a necromorph floating in a vat by the chemicals. We pick up the chemicals, and then Dr. Mercer shows up through the window, monologues at us for a little bit, and then releases his monster on us. Now, these lovely monsters, which I have taken to calling the big one, they regenerate a lot. You can't kill them by normal means. The best you can do is disable them and run. So, that's exactly what we do. We disable, and we run. Hammond calls us and tells us that he made it to hydroponics after we escaped the big one. But Hammond tells us that the situation is really, really bad. We run into Dr. Mercer again, where he decides to monologue at us once again, before dropping the big one on us once again. And now, this time, we need to fend off the big one while fighting through a room full of necromorphs in order to continue and get past the quarantine lockdown. Isaac successfully does it, and then picks up the DNA sample. Dr. Mercer, very unhappy that we have our DNA sample, decides to vent all of the air in the medical wing out, leaving us in a vacuum to run off of our limited oxygen. In order to bring the oxygen back online, Isaac needs to get to the security station and, boop boop boop, beep bop, fix everything. So, that's exactly what Isaac does. He runs through the vacuumed medical wing to the security station, boops the beeps, beeps the bops, turns the oxygen back on, and now he needs to mix the chemicals and the DNA sample in order to create our toxin to kill whatever is trying to kill us. Now for this next little bit, I unfortunately forgot to hit the record button, so I don't have any B-roll footage to show supplementing what happened. So, I'll just burn right through it. We learn that whatever's infecting the ship came from outside, and it's called the Leviathan. We mix the chemicals back in the room where the big one came from, and then with the poison made, we need to get to hydroponics. So Isaac tries to make his way back to the tram, only to be confronted by Dr. Mercer, yet again saying he has something that he wants Isaac to see. Dr. Mercer plans on spreading the infection to Earth, and it leaves Isaac alone in this room to fight his monster. So, luckily, in order to defeat the big one, we need to cut off its limbs while it's in this box thing, this little decontam room or something. It's a cryo freezer. Cut off its limbs while it's in the cryo freezer, slow it down so it can't crawl out, and then we run around into the control room, turn on the cryo freezer, and it kills the big one. Hopefully we won't have to deal with that guy ever again. But now, with the big one cryo frozen, I finally have more B-roll footage. Not a lot happened while I forgot to record, but enough that I needed to make that known, because that was pretty important. In order to get back to the tram and get to hydroponics, we need to lift Dr. Mercer's lockdown. We lift the lockdown, take the tram to hydroponics, and then find Hammond there. And Hammond is not doing great at all. Turns out, this Leviathan that broke in is using the people of the Ishimura as poison factories to constantly produce the toxic air. And we can't kill the Leviathan directly because it's locked up in food storage, and food storage is on lockdown because of the poisoned air. So now we need to go through and kill every single poison factory to lift the lockdown to kill the Leviathan. Isaac runs around killing poison factories throughout hydroponics and gets a call from Kendra. Kendra still thinks Hammond is lying about the marker, but I genuinely don't think Hammond is lying. Granted, I have the benefit of hindsight having completed the game, but those were my thoughts when I was playing too. As we kill factories, we get a message from Nicole on the screens, once again telling us to make them whole. Which, okay, a little creepy, but what do you know? Makes the game spookier. After killing the last factory, Isaac needs to cycle the oxygen systems to vent all of the toxic air. Kendra says that the crew started having hallucinations while we're trying to do this, and she's saying that she's having them too. Which, hey, that's another sign of infection. So first, Hammond's head starts pounding. Now Kendra is seeing hallucinations. Which starts to make you wonder, is Isaac seeing hallucinations too? Is Nicole really alive? Isaac cycles the air systems and lifts the lockdown on food storage. After that, he puts the poison into the air filtration system in an attempt to kill the Leviathan. But, unfortunately, it does not work. The poison does not seem to really hurt the Leviathan much. It weakens it a little bit, but we have to go in and finish the job ourselves, which leads to our second boss fight. We go into food storage, run around the room while blasting the weird glowing pustules on the Leviathan. And we kill it. We put the monster down, and the oxygen levels return back to normal. But on our way out, Hammond is missing. He's not where we last saw him laying on the floor. And Kendra says that there's a ship in the mining bay that we can use to escape. So I guess the plan now is abandon the Ishimura and leave Hammond behind. Isaac takes the tram to the mining deck. Kendra suggests that we put an SOS beacon on an asteroid that's locked in the mining tethers and launch that, so maybe somebody can come help and pick us up while we try to escape. In order to do that, we'll need the key from the processing subdeck. And this was the first time that I actually looked at my mission tab to figure out where I was going, because I had to take a break in between the processing key thing and now. So I looked, and apparently, the mission tab is actually pretty useful. It gives info on Isaac's current mission, obviously, it's a mission tab, but it also gives details from Isaac's perspective. So, if you ever wonder what Isaac thinks about his current mission, check the mission tab. Isaac heads to the sub-level 2 because the mining deck is currently offline. Which, don't know why that's offline, but okay. In order to get the mining key, first we need to get to the control room. The control room is on lockdown because this room with the mining laser is full of loose asteroids, causing a lockdown. So we throw the loose asteroids into the mining laser, destroying them, which lifts the lockdown. Which means we can now get into the security room and get the mining key. With the mining key, Isaac can now launch the asteroid. Kendra calls and lets him know that the colonists on the planet that started getting torn apart by the Ishimura were having some sort of dementia that only started when they found the marker. So the marker was inside the planet, and when the Ishimura started planet cracking, it released the infection and they found the marker, and with the marker released, the colonists started having crazy hallucinations. And now the people on the Ishimura are having hallucinations. So, does that mean the marker's on the Ishimura now? Spoiler alert, yes. Yes, the marker is on the Ishimura. We head down to the maintenance level to get the SOS beacon. And we finally find Nicole here. Glad to say, she is alive. Nicole tells Isaac to come with her, and that she can help us get the beacon. The beacon is in a room next to Isaac, and he is separated from Nicole by a very deep, but also very not wide chasm. Nicole tells Isaac that she can open the door for him. We just need to give her a moment. So we try to give her a moment, and then necromorphs decide they're going to come and screw us up. So Isaac proceeds to defend both himself and Nicole from the onslaught of necromorphs at the same time while she gets the door open. She disables the lock after that lovely little combat challenge, and Isaac grabs the beacon. With the beacon and the mining key, we're able to actually go into the mining bay and launch the asteroid. When we get to the asteroid, Isaac needs to disable gravity tethers in order to actually launch it. And this took me an embarrassingly long time to realize how to do. This little challenge consists of 2 mining tethers inside and then 2 mining tethers outside of the vacuum of space. In order to destroy the mining tethers, you need to slow down the rotating wheel thing in it and shoot the inner chambers. I didn't realize there were 2 mining lasers on the outside, and spent literally 30 minutes running around this room trying to figure out what to do. I tried jumping on the asteroid to see if I could place the SOS beacon, only to get absolutely wrecked by the weird little laser mining ring thing that's spinning around it. I had to look up a guide because I was so confused, only to realize I can walk around the asteroid to go outside, and that's where the other 2 lasers are, the 2 tethers are. So yeah, I was a little bit dumb. But regardless, Isaac destroys the 2 inside, walks around the asteroid, destroys the 2 outside, places the beacon, and goes back inside. Oh boy, that part was embarrassingly difficult, and it wasn't even that hard for me. I'm just an idiot. With the gravity tethers destroyed and the SOS beacon placed, we can finally head to the control room. We use the mining key to launch the asteroid with the SOS beacon out into space. And Kendra calls. She said she saw his brother. Why was that so hard to say? She saw her brother again. She saw him earlier, but that's the funny thing. Her brother is dead. She should not be seeing her brother if he is dead. We realize that the comms receiver to actually communicate with whoever might try to come and save us is down. So back to the bridge we go. Isaac takes the tram back to the bridge, and Kendra calls, saying a military ship has shown up, possibly to answer the SOS call, maybe not. But we can't talk to them until the communications are back on. On the way, we got ambushed by a bunch of what I call explodimorphs. They shuffle around towards you, and one of their arms is huge and glowing, and they go boom. So we kill off the explodimorphs, and then Kendra calls us, saying that she thinks someone is listening in to our comm session. And she might not be wrong, because, mind you, we haven't seen Dr. Mercer in a minute. We also run into some wall guys that shoot flesh blobs at us, and they can also blow your head off if you get too close. So there are 2 kinds of wall guys that you encounter in this game. There are the wall guys that spit necromites at you, and then there are the wall guys that spit they look like hematomas, if you know what a hematoma is. But these hematomas have little tendrils that will shoot spikes at you, and if you get too close to the wall guy that shoots the hematomas, they will shoot out a tendril that explodes your head. So they're fun to deal with. On the way, we learned that the mission the Ichimura is on to crack this planet was actually illegal. And it's why Captain Matthias, which I'm just not saying his name, but he's the captain that we stole the rig from. We learned that this is why Captain Matthias refused to call for help when all of this started going down. Because if he called for help, then people wouldn't know about the Ishimura's mission and everything. We get to the communications room, and apparently we need to align some satellite dish thingies in order to produce a strong enough signal to actually communicate with the military ship. And I actually expected this one to be a really long little thing to deal with, and it wasn't. It took me like 5-10 minutes, max. Isaac aligns the dishes, and now he needs to establish communications with the military ship, known as the Valor. The Valor picks up the escape pod that Hammond launched, which I forgot to mention that. Back when we met Hammond on the command bridge, way back when, He had trapped a necromorph in a escape pod, and he launched the escape pod. The Valor picked up the escape pod with the necromorph in it. That means that they just let the infection onto their ship. We lose connection with the Valor, and Kendra tells us that we need to open the blast shields to boost the signal so we can communicate with them again, and warn the Valor that something big is outside, and also to not open that escape pod. Now that there's something big outside, in order to open the blast shields, we need to go back to the cannons. Because that thing outside is holding the blast shields closed. So back to the cannons we go. After another cannon minigame, which was not anywhere near as bad as the first one, but still not a big fan of it, where we need to shoot the glowing spots on the big flesh creature outside. We kill the monster, and then Kendra gets in contact with the Valor, but it was too late. It was too late. It was way too late. The Valor is overrun by necromorphs, and they crash into the Ishimura.
Why did they open the pod? Damn it. Oh my god. It's headed right for us. Isaac! Isaac! Look out there!
Hammond calls. He survived, but someone was blocking his rig, which is why he couldn't contact us after we fixed everything in hydroponics. Hammond tells us we need to go into the cargo deck to salvage the singularity core from the Valor so we can repair a shuttle on the Ishimura and escape. So at least we still have an escape plan of some kind. We take the tram from the bridge to the cargo bay, and Hammond calls us saying the Valor was here to destroy the Ishimura, not save it, which means they didn't pick up our SOS beacon. They were sent here deliberately. Hammond loses connection again, and Kendra tells us to just go in, get the singularity core. When we get down to the Valor, one of its weapon system was ripped open, leaving these big balls of radioactive material floating around the zero-G room. In order to continue into the Valor, we need to get rid of the radioactive orbs to lift the lockdown. So that's what we do. We take the radioactive material, drop it out into space, then hop on into the Valor. The core is at the very back of the ship, and there's a whole lot of structural damage, meaning we're going to need to take the indirect route to the engine. When we get in, we encounter a new kind of very beefy, very quick necromorphs. I call them speedy morphs. And they are very quick because these are the soldiers from the Valor. They had built-in stasis modules, and the weird necromorph infection actually incorporates their stasis module into their body. Meaning, they essentially speed up their own time somehow and go new. The speedy morphs are a little bit of a pain to deal with, but they're just about as durable as regular necromorphs, so they don't take too much damage to cut off their limbs. But these were the first enemies to actually unnerve me. Surprisingly enough, the baby morphs didn't mess with me, but these jerky, erratic speedy morphs, I don't like them. I don't like them in the best way possible. I literally wrote in my notes, speedy morphs are actually freaky, don't like, smiley face. So, when I put a smiley face next to something in my notes, you know it's good. That's how I describe the Ripper. We get more Make Us Whole videos from Nicole, but her head in these videos glitches into a skull on the last few frames. So, that's really weird and ominous, and I highly doubt the actual footage glitched and replaced her head with a skull. So, I'm gonna come out and say it right now, I think these are hallucinations. We get a call from Hammond saying he made it to the bridge of the Valor, and is going to open up all the locks of this crashed shuttle so we can get through and meet him in the engine room. We also get a call from a survivor on the Ishimura, another doctor. His name is Dr. Kine. He is very eccentric, a bit of a nut job, but here's the crucial but. He is not loyal to whoever Mercer is. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, Mercer is loyal to unitologists. This whole thing is unitology rot. Dr. Kyne is a unitologist too, but he realizes that none of this is okay, and that it's all, like, apocalypse level shit. Anyway, Dr. Kyne calls Isaac and says he wants to return the marker to the planet, or this infection will not stop. So that might be our only way to fix this. After fighting through a very long room full of monsters, we find a text log where it confirms the Valor was sent to the Ishimura to destroy it, but they were sent to destroy it because the Ishimura found the marker. So, were they sent by the same people that sent the Ishimura? I personally think so. I think the Valor was sent to wipe out the Ishimura and take the marker off of it to wherever they needed to store it, because they realized the Ishimura is not going to be able to get it where it needs to go. When we get to the engine room, it is full of fire. The engines are still trying to fire off, and we need to use some cover to destroy the weird circuit boxes in the engine room to shut down the firing sequences of the engines and steal the Singularity Core. But we successfully destroy the circuit boxes and get the Singularity Core. When Isaac tries to leave the engine room, going down below the firing chamber, Hammond shows up on the other side of a wall of glass. Hammond congratulates us on getting the core and says that we need to get out, only for a massive armored necromorph to come through. It is another one of the big armored morphs, like the one we fought on the bridge, but this one's black, so that means it's going to take way more damage to kill. And Hammond dies in the most unceremonious way. When the monster comes through the door, Hammond is essentially like, I'll hold it off, I'll distract it, you get out of here, and opens fire with his pulse rifle on the thing that takes no damage from the front, and it smashes him into the glass, and then picks him up and uses him as a hammer to shatter the glass, killing him and just tossing his body aside before we have to deal with it. So we fight it like we fought the one on the bridge, slow it down, run behind it, shoot it in the ass with a line gun. And rest in peace to Hammond. Now, the only survivors of the Kellion are Isaac Clarke and Kendra, I don't know her last name. With the Singularity Core in hand, Hammond dead, and the monster also dead. The Valor starts to self-destruct. Its core is overloading or something, and we need to get off of it fast. When we get off the Valor, we find that the Speedy Morphs have invaded the Ishimura. So now we will have to deal with those for the rest of the game. We take the tram from the cargo bay down to the crew deck, and Kendra tells us she found the shuttle, but someone took the navigation cards from the shuttle, so it's completely useless. Which means we will need to find them before we can actually get the shuttle and leave. But in order to find those, we need to find a crew card to get into the room where the navigation cards are. On the way to get the crew card, we come through a large room full of bodies, blood, and candles. And it looks like some sort of ritual sacrifice site from the members of the Ishimura. We find a text log talking about unitology, claiming it is the fastest growing religion in history, quote unquote, and that they worship the marker, which I had said earlier in the video, but here's where we learn that. And apparently they think it is the key to granting eternal life, which, from what we've seen, they're not wrong, but it's not the eternal life you would want. Although maybe the unitologists do want this, maybe they're freaky like that, who knows. We pass a window and watch Dr. Mercer execute Temple, who is a survivor we've been finding audio logs from, via a dagger to the head, which looks a whole lot like how the bodies in the previous room were killed. Just holes in their head. I at first thought they were all shot, but now seeing Dr. Mercer execute Temple and claim that Temple will now join the rest, maybe Mercer killed all of the other ones with that same dagger. We pick up the crew card from the mess hall, and then get another call from Kyne. He says he wants to talk to us after we get the nav cards. We use the crew key to take an elevator to the crew quarters, but life support on the sleep block B is down, which means we'll need to find an override for that door. We get ambushed by yet another tendril and proceed to shoot off its goopy bits to kill it. When we go into sleep block 4 and we find the room, we shut down the door's override system thing, and then we head into sleep block B. Sleep block B is crawling with monsters, and we have very limited oxygen considering this whole area's got a vacuum pulled on it. It took me a couple tries, but I eventually was able to run in, grab the thing, get out, and then proceeded to spend the next 15 minutes save scumming to go on several runs to go in, grab, materials and everything, just arrive, then leave. But we got that nav card. I ended up having to use a lot of stasis, actually, to get that first nav card, which was the first time I had used this much stasis since fighting the big one back in medical. We take the elevator down to the mess hall area, and then go back through the sacrifice room to sleep block C. I went into that Z-ball room, picked up the other nav card, and got out. On our way out, I found a televangelist video of Dr. Mercer playing in the common room. So he really seems to be like the center of the unitologist control in Ishimura. At least that was what I took away from it. It was really creepy, really unnerving, very fanatical, and I loved every minute of it. Isaac has to end up doing a sliding puzzle with some beds, and I don't like sliding puzzles, but it wasn't too bad. It was just slow. We move the beds around, we get the last nav card, only for our good old pal Dr. Mercer to drop a second big one on us. And we're able to evade it using the sliding puzzle, but this thing keeps pursuing us through the vents. We end up in another room where we have to fight off a bunch of necromorphs, and this one was even harder than the last one. But we kill the necromorphs, keep disabling the big one, and made it out just barely. With nav chips found, Isaac finally gets to go talk to Dr. Kyne. Kendra warns Isaac that Kyne might be unstable, and yeah, he's very unstable. Kendra tells us to be careful, but I don't think there's much being careful can do for you in this situation. So we go to talk to Kyne, and he is rambling. Like, madman with a revelation levels of rambling. He shows us a video of this massive monster on the planet called the Hive Mind, and he claims that that was what was in the planet. When they cracked it open and the infection spread and they took the marker, that was what they unleashed. And he wants us to return the marker to the planet to satiate the Hive Mind and make it stop the infection. We also learn that most of the higher-ups on this ship were unitologists, which means that this entire operation, aside from maybe some engineers and some lower level people that don't matter, was run by unitology with the express purpose of getting the marker off this planet in particular. We get to the executive shuttle and install the nav cards like we were supposed to. Then Dr. Kyne says to wait for him to get down there so we can shuttle it around to the front of the building. And then the big one comes back. Thought I had escaped it, but no. What we end up having to do is disable the big one like we did the first time, but we have to get it right in front, or right behind the executive shuttle. Then Isaac runs back into the control room and fires off the test thrusters, completely disintegrating the big one, and finally putting that mini-boss to bed. Dr. Kyne gets there and tells us to start the undocking procedures, and that he'll take the shuttle to the flight deck where the marker is. So that's exactly what Isaac does. He starts the undocking procedures, Kyne gets in, and leaves with the ship. And on the way back to the tram, Isaac gets a call from Dr. Mercer telling Isaac to join him before Mercer lets himself get changed by one of the Batmorphs. When we finally head towards the tram and come to the big room where all the people were sacrificed, we catch Dr. Mercer in the final legs of transformation, and I tore his ass to shreds. I didn't give him the chance to do anything. He was still being transformed when I just rippered him which, you know what? He deserves it. He doesn't deserve a big ceremonious boss battle. He deserves the disrespect of a ripper to the face, because screw Dr. Mercer. But with that done, it seems the only survivors left on this ship are me, or Isaac, Kendra, and Kyne. Now we take the tram to the flight deck, and Kyne calls us saying that there's a cargo lift that Isaac can use to transport the marker. So Isaac goes down, grabs the marker, puts it on the transport lift, fighting through more necromorphs and more tendrils. But when that's done, the marker is sent up to the flight deck. Now all that's left is for Isaac to meet Kyne on the flight hangar and get out of here. Isaac takes the elevator back up towards the hangar and walks through the room where we started this area. It's the room where Isaac, Hammond, and Kendra first got separated way back at the beginning. The one where Isaac had no choice but to run away. But now we have weapons, and we get ambushed by a lockdown and have to fight off necromorphs. But we're not as helpless as we were in the beginning. With the necromorphs destroyed, Kyne docks the shuttle, and we go down and load the marker. We have to shut down the gravity in the room in order to move the marker from point A to point B because of how heavy it is. But we do that while fighting off more necrobabies and crawly morphs before we finally get the marker under the shuttle and load it up. With the marker in place, Isaac turns the gravity back on and then goes to meet Kyne to take the executive shuttle down to the planet. And Kyne gets out to greet Isaac, only to be shot in the back by Kendra. Kendra was a double agent. She was never on our side. She was working with Unitology. She was here to get the marker. And now, with Kyne dead, and her on the shuttle, it seems like there's no way for Isaac to get off the Ishimura. With Kendra having escaped with the marker, we get a call from Nicole that she seems to have survived still, and she's in the flight control room. She tells us to go meet her there, so we fight through a few necromorphs and get to the control room of the flight hangar. Nicole tells us that we can actually use the systems of the Ishimura to remotely call back the executive shuttle so we can take it down to the planet and finish this ourselves. And so we do. Kendra, realizing that she's gonna have to face Isaac, ejects herself out of the shuttle with an escape pod. So now she's gone, and that leaves Isaac to go back down to the flight hangar with Nicole and take the executive shuttle down to the planet. On the planet's surface, Isaac offloads the marker and has to carry it through, well, not carry it, but pull it through the facility on the planet to something called the pedestal chamber. Isaac goes through a bunch of rooms of slowing bridges, fighting necromorphs, and moving the marker, and it even has to go through a gravity tube just to turn power back on. But eventually, Isaac gets the marker to the pedestal. When Isaac places the marker on the pedestal, it disables gravity tethers that were holding a massive chunk of the planet up above the surface, meaning that now that those are gone, that thing is going to come crashing down and destroy everything on this planet. When Isaac goes to leave, a door closes behind us and we get trapped in this glass chamber decontamination thing, and Kendra shows up. She survived, her escape pod and everything worked, and she forces Isaac to watch the entire video Nicole sent him while she steals the marker. And that is where we learn Nicole is dead. She's been dead this whole time, and Isaac, maybe some part of him knew, and that's why he never watched the full video. Because when Nicole left for the Ishimura, her and Isaac were not on good terms. They had a fight, but Nicole says in the video that she never stopped loving him. And it shows Nicole kill herself so she doesn't turn into the monsters around her. And Isaac is, he's devastated. His one tie to living, his fiancée, the woman he wanted to spend his life with, the woman he wanted to apologize to for their fight, has been dead the whole time. And what we've been seeing, the Nicole we've been following, was just a hallucination caused by the marker. Because that's what the marker does. Aside from turning living flesh into dead murder bodies, it makes people see people they know are dead, or people they love that are dead, whether they actually know the fates or not. Which explains why Kendra was seeing her brother, despite her brother being dead. It was all because of the marker. And now Kendra has it. And Isaac has nothing left to live for. He just wants this to be done. Hey, Editing Strider here. A couple of things I forgot to mention when talking about the whole bit with the reveal that Nicole is dead. Firstly, it's a really neat little detail. If you pay attention to the first letter and all 12 chapters of Dead Space, and you put them all together, they actually do spell out the twist. Nicole is dead. So that's really neat. Also, the other thing, I forgot to mention Kendra's info dump to us regarding the marker. Turns out, as per Kendra, the whole thing happening on this planet and on the Ishimura, the whole bit with the marker and the hive mind, it was all planned. Kind of. It was a 200-ish year old experiment by the unitologists who had created this red marker by themselves using the blueprints from a black marker somewhere else that they had found. And they planted it on this planet. They buried it and let it sit there for 200 years to see what would happen to this colony. And, well, we've seen what happens to the colony. But now that that's done, back to the rest of the video. Thank you for hanging in there with me. So he goes so he can take the shuttle and get off this planet and leave this all behind him. Only for Kendra to beat him to the shuttle. But she doesn't take off with the marker. Because the hive mind, the massive monster that's been leading this necromorph invasion, attacks, grabs her, slams her around and kills her, and now we are left to kill the hive mind and leave. And my god, was this a fun boss fight. When I figured out how to avoid the attacks, it became pretty easy, just running from one corner to the other in the front of the arena. But it still took me a couple tries. But we put the hive mind down. We finally end this. Leave the marker behind on the planet and take the shuttle off. Right as the massive chunk of planet that was floating above that was falling crashes into the planet, destroying the marker, the hive mind, the Ishimura, and every trace of what happened here. And Isaac sits there. He takes his helmet off in the shuttle, only to turn next to him and see Nicole as she jump scares him. Meaning, his nightmares, the whole thing that happened here, it's not over yet. And Isaac is going to have to live with these hallucinations. Live with the guilt that he never had the chance to apologize to Nicole. But that's where this game ends. That's the end of Dead Space. The first one, anyway. And now, my final thoughts on this game. So all in all, Dead Space, for how clunky the controls are, which I say is a plus for this game, with how in-depth the story is, I can easily look past the two parts I didn't like of the canons, and I can easily call this game my favorite horror game. It is the best horror game I've ever played. It's got my favorite story, and I'm personally very biased to Eldritch horror. And this mixes zombie apocalypse with Eldritch horror in a way that is just peak sci-fi horror fiction. I love it to bits. I will definitely play the second game and do a retrospective on that eventually. And I need to play the remake of Dead Space 1. I need to see how the changes, what changes between the original and the remake. Because I played about a third of the remake a while ago, but I don't remember much of it. And I also need to play the second game. I will not be playing the third one, because unfortunately the third game in the Dead Space trilogy is garbage, and EA meddled with it, as EA tends to do. But this isn't a retrospective on Dead Space 3. This isn't a critique on Dead Space 3. This video is about Dead Space 1. And I could say from the beginning to the end, aside from the 2 canon sections, I loved my time playing this game. I loved the experience. I loved learning the. Now, I'd already known the story. I've seen so many retrospectives and history videos and story breakdowns, but I'm so glad I played it because there's nothing quite like playing the game for yourself. And if you enjoyed this video, if this inspired you to pick up this game, if you can, and check out, like, play the game for yourself, feel it for yourself, enjoy the story for yourself, I say do it. This game is worth all of the hype that it generated. It is worth every minute you give it. And I am so happy that I've had the chance to experience it, and that I can share my experience with you all in the form of this retrospective. And if you liked this video, I know it's different from, my usual content here. I've been doing Let's Plays for the last year and a half. But I want to try doing retrospectives, so leave a comment, tell me, like, did you enjoy it? What is something you think I could have done better? More details you think I should have put in? Any critiques on my own video? Tell me about it. Tell me what you think. And so I can continue to make these kinds of videos even better. Because, frankly, I'm gonna need your help telling me what I did good, what I did bad, so I know what to change. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Check out the other stuff on my channel. I'll be definitely making more retrospectives. And I'll see y'all next time. Strider Fox, out.